comes as survivors of convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein have released a PSA urging Congress to vote on releasing all the files related to this case. Let's take a listen to that.
I was 14 years old.
I was 16 years old.
I was 16.
17. 14 years old.
This is me.
This was me.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
This is me when I met Jeffrey Epstein.
There are about 1,000 of us.
It's time to bring the secrets out of the shadows. It's time to shine a light into the darkness.
That heartbreaking video ends with a call to action for voters to tell their Congress members to vote yes on the release of these files. That vote could take place as early as tomorrow. I want to bring in now White House reporter for The Hill, Julia Manchester. Julia, I want to start with this change of course from President Trump, because I left town and Congress left town in the middle of last week, hearing from Trump and DOJ officials and others within the White House saying, could you take your name off of the discharge petition? Might you not vote for this? Might you not push for the compulsion of the release of these files? Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, others all said, no, I'm going to keep my name on this discharge petition. Now there is a clear about face from the president. What is going on here?
Yeah, a total 360. Look, the president and the administration would argue, look, we want everyone to focus on the accomplishments of our administration, to focus on how we're trying to deal with the issue of affordability, for example. We know that this is a big week for President Trump. He has, of course, Saudi Arabian Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman coming to Washington tomorrow. He wants to tout those, conversations, those, accomplishments, etc. However, the top story, wherever President Trump goes in the world, is the Epstein files, is Jeffrey Epstein. But at the same time, you have to wonder whether this is an effort to get more focus or sort of move on from this and get more focus on the administration's work, or if it's something President Trump was trying to save face with, particularly with House Republicans. You know, we heard Congressman Thomas Massie, for example, talking about how a lot of House Republicans were privately telling him that they were interested in voting for this. So this could be the president essentially trying to save face ahead of that House vote, which Mike Johnson scheduled pretty early.
I was going to say, is this Trump not wanting to look like a loser, that he doesn't have control over House Republicans? Because my understanding from talking to Republicans privately is they didn't want to sign the discharge petition because they didn't want to cut crossways with their own leadership. That's the whole point of a discharge petition, is to apply pressure on leadership who doesn't want to hold a vote on whatever the central issue is. But now that it's out there, and now that the speaker has said, okay, I'm going to just push the vote earlier than what the discharge petition would demand, right? He's just doing it now. Now I know Republicans are saying, yeah, I'm going to vote for this. I think it's the right thing to be transparent on this. And they could have extremely large margins, the likes of which we don't usually see. Does the White House acknowledge that maybe they misread the political salience of this issue?
I don't think they're going to acknowledge that publicly. But privately, I mean, it's possible. I haven't chatted with any White House officials since the news broke late last night from the president himself. But, the president is someone who obviously wants to, and he prides himself on this by keeping his the Republican conference, Republican caucus, very much intact on Capitol Hill. And this could have shown a bit of a crack there. It also comes, you have to remember, as Marjorie Taylor Greene, a major supporter of the president's, has really spoken out against him. You know, I think the president's very cognizant of what this looks like. You know, the Republican Party that under him for the past 10 months or so has been pretty unified, and, versus the Democratic Party, which has shown major signs of disunity. I think the president really wanted to create a contrast, and there was a threat that contrast could be broken if, there was more controversy over these Epstein files.
I think the open question is, and I was talking to Senator Amy Klobuchar at Texas Tribune Festival over the weekend, and she said that Democrats are going to try to find a way to force this vote, to force this issue. There's less mechanisms for them to do that in the Senate than there is in the House. But nevertheless, the Schoolhouse Rock version of this would go that if the House passes it, the Senate's got to do the same, and then it goes to President Trump's desk. So let's live in that world for a moment where the political pressure is so great that the Senate has to move on it, and let's live in a world where it passes. Do you think that Trump would ultimately sign this?
It's really unclear, and I think all eyes are probably on, obviously, Majority Leader Thune at this point.